Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be going over my September reading wrap up. Did that wording make sense? Anyway, I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of September. And I did read my 10 books. Exactly my 10 books. The first book that I read, I finished on September 4th, and that was Aragon. I was listening to the audiobook for that, and I'll pop up a picture probably over here or I don't know, somewhere. Since it was an audiobook, I don't have the actual book to show you, but I rated that a 4 stars. I liked it. I just thought it was, and I started the second book too on audiobook as well. I think I'm probably about a third of the way through it, quarter of the way, third of the way, something like that. It's honestly kind of hilarious reading these books for the first time and reading them after Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. How many similarities there are. It's just very interesting. The second book that I read was the Grimm's Fairy Tales graphic novel. This is volume 11, and when I did my September TBR game, I mentioned that I didn't realize this was volume 11, and I don't really know why I have volume 11, and my husband didn't get me the first volume because my husband got me this. But I feel like there's definitely stuff that happened before this that I don't know, but I wasn't confused about what was happening in here. I don't know if the ones that came before it tie into it, but I was not nearly as confused as I thought I would be. And I actually really liked it. I think I gave this 4 stars. I did indeed. And I finished that on September 5th. Third book was A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley. And this book was really cute. I actually ended up liking this a lot more than the first one. I think I gave the first book 3 stars and I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't quite 5 stars for me. I just don't think that, I don't think romance is really my thing. So this is a romance book, and it's centered around mythological creatures and beings, but I wouldn't call it fantasy because it's definitely not fantasy. It's definitely just romance with like mythological beings and magic. And honestly, magic doesn't really play as much of a vital role in this book as you would think, following a demon and a witch. But it was really cute, and I felt like the characters had more depth than the first one. So yeah, I didn't even say what this book is about. I mean, literally the title is what this book is about. This book follows the best friend of the main character in the first book, who falls in love with a demon, and the demon falls in love with her, and they're on a mission for things I can't say in case you haven't read the first book. So that's enough of that one. Oh, I did not read this. I don't know why that's there. Okay. Next book. I finished that one on September 5th as well. Ooh, look at me. The next book was Zero's Journey, which is just like a manga. And I gave this 2 stars. I finished this on September 8th. I gave this 2 stars. I just didn't like it. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. You see, I got pops up here. I love it. I love the movie, but I feel like the stories that they've tried to come out with to like follow up on that and like keep the story going, they've been so disappointing. This one was just so lame and so pointless. It was just not interesting at all. So 2 stars for that. Very sad. Next, I read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, and I actually don't know why I bought this copy, because I have a bind up of like Washington Irving's complete works or something like that, and it obviously has The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in it. And I forgot I owned that when I bought this, but I went to Where You Been and it was on like a $1 day or something like that, and it was like 10 books for $1. So I was just grabbing a bunch of books and I grabbed this. So I don't know why, but I did read it. I gave it 3 stars, I think. I didn't jive with the writing so much. It's just so, honestly, it was kind of, this is another thing. I love like the Disney cartoon of this. Watch it every single year. I love it. It's so cute. But Ichabod is like so kind of like, his name is Ichabod and he's kind of icky. Like, and I'm sure it's like a product of the times, but like, he's like, the book is low-key sexist and Ichabod just like doesn't actually, I don't know. He just wants someone who's gonna feed him a lot of food and give him a lot of money. So I kind of don't feel bad that he got scared out of town. So there's that. Next, I did not read this, but it was on my TBR and I ended up DNFing it. This is Dreadful by Caitlin Rozakis. And it just, I think I got about a third of the way through and I was so bored. Nothing was happening in this book. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about what the story, like, I feel like it has a potential to end up being interesting, but I was almost halfway through the book and nothing had happened. Like, there was a demon scare and he turned some guy into a chicken. And that's literally that's all that happened in pretty much the first half of the book. So I DNF'd that. And then I read The Predator by Runix on KU. I finished that on September 14th and I gave that 2.5 stars. It wasn't bad enough for me to DNF, although I'll be honest, it was close. The writing was horrendous. I will not be continuing this series right now. I need a break. I think at some point I may try to continue the series because I do know this is the very first book that this author ever wrote, and I do know that their writing improves because I've read another one of their books that I really, really enjoyed that they had written later on. So I'm hoping that as the series goes on, the writing gets better, but I'm not willing to give it that chance right now. The twist in the story was good. It was interesting and it was heartbreaking. I'm not really into, I don't even know if you could call this book a romance. It's supposed to be like a dark romance. It's not romantic. It's not romantic. There's a lot of smut scenes, which are fine. Like, the scenes are fine. They're just not, they weren't my thing. Like, it's kind of the whole, it's an enemies to lovers thing, but like, I don't know. It just, I don't know if it worked for me. Also, the story in general was just so cliche and not like super interesting. Anyway, 2.5 stars. Should I tell you what that's about? Maybe? So, I don't even remember the names of the people, honestly. I don't. But we're following a young woman who is the daughter of a mob boss. I think she's 18. and she kind of just like does whatever she wants and ditches her security detail all the time, and she is like a computer girly, and she creates these codes, and honestly it's like really flimsy. The whole problem that sets up the plot is like so flimsy, because it just talks about these codes. Like, it never tells you what they do. It just, or like really explains why she made them. She made them on a bet, but like, we don't know what these codes do. They're just like codes. And apparently these codes can ruin everyone, and we don't know how. We don't know anything about these codes. We just know they exist. And it just kind of, the entire plot is propped up on the fact that these codes exist. And it's just like, what? It doesn't actually make any sense. But if you didn't know anything about computers at all, you could probably just ignore that. Anyway, and then she has to like make an alliance with the rival mob to try and find these codes. There. Okay. September 17th, I finished Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved this book so much. This was a Gothic horror, and I just loved it. It was so, there were parts that were just so gross and so creepy, and it's just amazing. I found it was a little predictable, not entirely predictable. Like the major reveal was not predictable for me. However, the couple of little like miniature twists and reveals that happen after that, I found very predictable. But it wasn't enough to make it unenjoyable. I find oftentimes that if a book is too predictable, it's just not enjoyable. And that kind of knocks down the rating a little bit, but it didn't in this. It was just so good. I'm not sure if I like loved the ending the most, but still 5 stars. It was great. This book is, I keep not telling you guys what these books are about. This is, we're following the main character, Noemi, who is sent by her father to check up on her cousin who's recently married. And she got married like really quickly to a guy she barely knew. The dad doesn't like him because he doesn't know him. Like, he thinks it's like really weird that they got married so fast. And then he got, he swept her away to his family home in the country. And now the cousin has sent a really cryptic and creepy letter to Noemi's father saying that somebody's trying to poison her, that there's like creepy things in the house, there's ghosts in the house, and she needs someone to help her. So Noemi goes to check up on her and see, mostly the dad wants to see whether or not she needs psychiatric assistance. So, and of course, the husband and the family are insisting that everything's fine. They're insisting that their family doctor is capable of taking care of the situation. And then things get real creepy. There you go. On September 22nd, I finished The Shadows Between Us, and I gave this book 5 stars. The first chapter just was so comical in its bluntness, and it's just like unapologetic, like homicidalness, that it gripped me right away. This book is kind of like a dark Bridgerton-ish. Not super like that, but kind of dark Bridgerton-ish. I'd say that that's the vibes, like Bridgerton but dark. This was another situation where I found it a tad predictable, although the major reveal I did not predict. And then it was just fun. Like, this book was just so fun. Is it the most, like, hard-hitting fantasy romance? And is it even I don't even think it, I don't even know if I should count this as fantasy romance. So magic exists in this world, but only for the king, because of like a special deal that one of his like great grandfathers or something made, and then it was passed down generation to generation. But it doesn't exist in any other way, so I don't know if this counts as fantasy. I don't think it does. It's really just like dark romance. And also the setting is a little confusing because it's kind of like Regency, in the sense that there's a king and a kingdom, and there's a court at the palace, and most people are wearing like Regency style ball gowns, but electricity exists and is used commonly, although not in the castle. And semi-automatic weapons exist, but people also still walk around with swords on their hips. So it's a little interesting, but it was just so much fun. Like, is this a masterpiece? The writing was fine. Like, it was fine. It wasn't bad. It was just fun. I went back and forth on whether or not I should give this 4.5 or 5 stars. And then because I wasn't sure if it like gave me that, sorry I keep saying like so much. I couldn't figure out if it really gave me that 5-star feeling. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I just had so much fun with this. I kept wanting to pick it up, and I have no complaints. So if that's not a 5-star, I don't know what is. So we gave her 5 stars. That book is following a young woman who is the second born daughter, and there's a law in the kingdom that the second born daughter can't begin courting until the first daughter is engaged. And she's been really overlooked by her father, and she kind of lashed out, I guess. Like, in this society, it would be considered lashing out. Because there's also a law that girls have to be virgins on their wedding night. So she's just been sleeping with everyone, and completely unapologetically. And she's also not, she thinks she's being sneaky about it, but her dad knows. Anyway, she killed her first lover because he left her for someone else. And since then, she decided she's not going to fall in love. She's just going to use men for the gifts that they give her. And once they're hooked, she's going to ditch them. And then she realizes she's bored with that. So now she's going to try it on the king. And once he falls for her, she's going to kill him and take over the kingdom. And does it work out that way? I don't know. You have to read it. And I did recently buy the second one because it was just so much fun. On September 24th, I finished In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. And what did I give this for? 3.5 stars. I felt like up until the point of the reveal, it was looking like a 4 or even possibly a 5-star. But this was one of those situations where after the reveal, it was so predictable that after the reveal, it was just like, oh, really? Sometimes it's fun to like guess stuff and then be right about it. But in this case, it wasn't, because it was the most obvious option and the most obvious, not the most obvious. I feel like, I mean, yeah, it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious. I'm going to say the most obvious motive. So 3.5. This is about a woman who gets invited to her ex-best friend's hen do, which is just a bachelorette party. She hasn't talked to her or seen her or anything in 10 years. So she's really confused on why she's invited. But they have a mutual friend that she does kind of run into every once in a while. And so they're still in contact, and she gets invited also. So she contacts the mutual friend and is like, are we doing this? Are we going? And they decide to go, even though really neither one of them really wants to go. They just do. I don't know, out of curiosity or obligation. I don't know. Honestly, the entire plot is kind of resting on the fact that they decide to go when neither of them wanted to go and neither of them has a reason to go. So it's a little flimsy. It's a little flimsy, but I felt like up until maybe like the first 3/4 of this book, it did a pretty decent job of trying to mislead you. But in my opinion, the misleading felt a little too heavy-handed and made it pretty obvious who the culprit was. So, I don't know. It was enjoyable-ish. And then, when did I finish this? The 27th. I read Bridgerton's The Duke and and I gave this 3.5 stars. I have watched the show. I've watched all 3 seasons of the show, and I think maybe that put a damper on my enjoyment of the book, which is part of the reason why I want to really get through the books that already have seasons made for them, so I can read the other books before they make seasons for them, because I think I would have enjoyed this book a lot more had I not seen the show first. Because in my opinion, the show does this book so many favors. It wasn't bad. And like I said, I would have enjoyed it more had I not had the show to compare it to. But there are just some things that happen in here that don't make a whole lot of sense. And there are things in here that really make our 2 main characters not look the greatest. Like, in this book, Daphne does... I'm sure everybody knows what this is about. But in case you don't, this is about a young woman, Daphne, who is out on the marriage market. This is like a Regency romance. And her brother's best friend, who is a duke, is back in town. And they meet and they strike up a deal to pretend to be courting, so that he can get all of the mamas off his back and she can attract more suitors. In the book, she's been out for 2 seasons already. I think she's on her 2nd season in the book, whereas in the show, she's in her 1st season. Also, the queen plays no role in this book. Lady Danbury shows up once or twice, but really doesn't play any role in the book. The show adds on a lot of characters that kind of make the plot make more sense. Yeah. So, in the show, this is probably going to be spoilers if you haven't read this or watched the show. So, I apologize. I just don't know how else to talk about this. In the show, the scene where Daphne goes into the garden alone and Simon follows her and then they kiss and Antony finds them. In the book, it's made very, very clear that Daphne is trying to seduce him. They kind of hint at it a little bit in the show, but it really comes across more as like she was just hoping something would happen and she wasn't like actively trying to seduce him in the show. But in the book, she really is. And then the duel scene. In the show, they have Cressida Calpa. Sorry, I was saying her name weird. They have Cressida Calpa, who gives Daphne someone concrete to be like, somebody saw us and they're going to tell if we don't get married. In the book, the person who sees them in the garden doesn't actually see what happens. He just sees them go into the garden together, or like one after the other, and then he happens to be one of her brother's best friends, so he's not gonna say anything. And then, but Daphne gets it into her head that if he saw it, somebody else must have seen it, even though she has absolutely no proof of that. And then that's why she goes and disrupts the duel, because she's like, someone must have seen, so we have to get married. It just doesn't make as much sense in the book as it does in the show. And that's for a lot of things. And there were a couple points in the book where it made it seem like the book was trying to be a romantic comedy, but it really didn't work. And I appreciate that the show was not attempting to be a romantic comedy. It was a romance, and then a couple funny things happened, but it didn't really feel like it was trying to be a romantic comedy. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, it was okay. I'm obviously going to continue on with the series, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, those are all the books that I read in September. I am also, I forgot to bring it over here, I am also reading, what is it? White Crow by Marcus Sedgwick. And I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through that, or halfway, somewhere around there. I've kind of purposefully, maybe a little, might be cheating a little. I have been purposefully prolonging that book so that I can finish it in October. So I probably will end up finishing it tomorrow. Today is September 30th. So I kind of want that to count towards my October books since I did meet my 10 book requirement for September without it. So I'm probably going to finish that tomorrow because I want it to count for October. But it's interesting so far. I really like it so far. Anyway, that's it. Those are all of the books that I read in September. Let me know your thoughts if you've read any of these books, if you have the same opinions, or if you have drastically different ones. Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!